You've worked hard for 40 years, built an amazing safety net for you and your family, and now is the time in your life where you have energy, health, and resources to do what you want to do. But before you draw down your pension, you need to know the common mistakes that can cost you thousands later on. We've worked with over 10,000 people to help them retire and live amazing lives. And here are the 3 mistakes I see and what you should do to not get caught by them. So mistake number 1 is using your tax-free cash too early. I often meet people who retire a few years earlier than others, and they all do the same thing. They take the 25% tax-free cash straight away, and they immediately shift it over and put it into their bank accounts. And they live off this money until the state pension kicks in. On the surface, it can feel really sensible, but 5 or 6 years later, that tax-free cash is now typically gone. And every pound they take from their pension and their state pension becomes taxable. And they end up paying way more tax than they expected later on. So earlier on in your retirement, it's important to have flexibility, that is when you're going to have, to spend the most and you're going to be able to enjoy it. Tax-free cash is one of the most valuable tools you have in retirement. So using it all immediately is never going to be a good idea. When you use it too early, you remove flexibility later on. So instead of taking it all at once, it's often better to use tax-free cash gradually to top up your income, to stay in the lower tax bands and preserve the flexibility as well for later on in life. The mistake isn't about taking tax-free cash. The mistake is taking all of it at once without a plan. And that's why taking 25% tax-free straight away might not be the best thing to do. We now need to look at why relying solely on your state pension may not be the best idea either. By the way, guys, if you're enjoying the video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more retirement content. It really helps us ensure that we invest in and produce the best content for you. Likewise, if you have any things you want us to look at in up and coming videos, then put that in the comments below too. Mistake number 2 is expecting the state pension to save you. I still hear people say, I'll be fine when the state pension starts. So let's put some real numbers on that. The full UK state pension is currently just over £11,500 a year. That's around £960 a month before tax. Now ask yourself, could you cover your lifestyle on £960 a month? The answer is probably going to be no. Would that pay your bills, your food, your travel, and still leave room for you to enjoy your lifestyle? Again, for most people, it's barely going to cover the basics. And that is assuming that you qualify for the full amount, or that you wait until state pension age to retire, or that the rules do not change again like they have done so many times before. Many people are also surprised to learn that the state pension starts later than they expect, and it is actually taxable income, and it can often push them into the higher tax later on in life as their income increases. So the state pension was never designed to fund retirement. It was designed to prevent poverty amongst people that have stopped working. It works best as a top-up and not as the sole income in retirement. Strong retirement plans should not rely solely on the state pension, and they really need you to have multiple income streams in retirement. So if your plan only works when the state pension kicks in, you are relying on the weakest part of the system to carry the most weight. Okay, so now we understand why you shouldn't rely on the government to fund the most important phase of your life. Next, let's have a look at why you shouldn't rely on your partner either. So mistake number 3 is about having assets too one-sided between spouses. So this one is far more common than people think or realise. But it's really, really true for a lot of people. So one person has built up most of the pension, let's say £600,000, and the other has very little pension income of their own. Let's say this imaginary couple need £40,000 a year to live comfortably. So all of that income is actually taken from one spouse, one pension in one name. That means that the first £12,500 is tax-free, and the rest is taxed at 20% and sometimes 40%. At the same time, the other spouse is sitting there with a full unused personal allowance, doing absolutely nothing. Retirement should be planned at a household level, not at an individual one. And it's really important to look at this as you're progressing towards retirement, obviously not when you hit it. So when all the income comes from one person, your tax bills are going to be higher, the income is going to be less flexible, and you're going to have fewer levers to pull if circumstances change. If that same £40,000 was split across 2 pensions, you can use 2 personal allowances, keep more income in your pocket, and you have lower tax bands, and you reduce unnecessary tax every single year. Balancing assets between spouses does not change how much you spend. It changes how much you keep in your pocket, which is the most important thing. And that is why this is one of the simplest planning improvements, but unfortunately, one of the most overlooked. If you avoid these 3 mistakes, retirement becomes far less stressful. You keep more control, you pay less unnecessary tax, and your money works harder for longer. And that is what turns a good pension into a great retirement. So if you found this video useful, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Thanks very much for watching.